Hello everyone, Kaoz here, and welcome to another old school RuneScape video. Every now and then people come to my streams to ask, hey Kaoz, I stopped playing for a few months or even years, is there something important I missed during my break? Other than one or two major pieces of content, I never had a solid answer, and that is why for the last video of 2024, I decided to do a little rewind to check out 10 of the best updates Jagex had for us this year, no matter how big or small. Ladies and gentlemen, we made it through another year of weekly uploads, and if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to subscribe with notifications on to check out the upcoming videos I have for you in 2025. You can also join our Discord server with the link in the description to play with me and our amazing community. No big disclaimer for this one other than the fact that we are only looking at my personal top 10 updates of 2024, going over how they changed the game we play forever. Because it's my personal tier list, if you agree or disagree, stick around until the end of the video to tell us what your favorite update was this year for a chance to win a bond. That being said, let's get into the last video of 2024. We are starting with big changes that don't make it higher in the ranking simply because it doesn't affect a huge portion of the player base, and that's the mobile update we got in November of 2024. Jagex made some crucial tweaks to the way we play OSRS on the go, which makes things much smoother. Some key updates include a new HUD for all of the icons that can be found towards the right, and the left part of the screen is now for something new called hotkeys. This comes to substitute F keys if you play on PC, and there is a much better way to access some tools for PVM and skilling. If you want to learn more about them, you can check out my video, which was all about this wonderful update. Probably the biggest change was the addition of Menu Entry Swapper to OSRS Mobile, which lets us customize the first option we tap on when interacting with something. If you go to the Grand Exchange, you would have to either talk to a banker and long press to access the bank, but you can now change the option for banking to be the first thing you do. You can do this with as many items or NPCs as you want for better gameplay. We also got the addition of NPC indicators to highlight the monsters or people we want to interact with to see them quicker for whatever activity we are doing. Some older additions got slightly improved like ground markers and ground items by making them more accessible through the hotkey menu. And the tools like Puzzle Solver make the mobile version of OSRS more attractive, whether it be for main mobile players or people wanting to get some gains on the go. On the other side of the spectrum, we have small changes that affect a larger portion of the player base, and these are quality of life changes for both skilling and PVMing. For the first one, Barbarian Training has two new perks making it so you don't need a seed dipper anymore when planting seeds. Related to farming, when you plant trees, you have the option to automatically smash your plant pots to avoid manually dropping things during your tree runs. Two quick ones for combat. The scythe was buffed in two ways. First, it now costs less blood runes to charge, but will remain a little expensive. However, this may not be the case if you do PVM activities to upkeep those charges. The second one is that the scythe doesn't use any charges when it hits a 0. In the past, you would eat up those precious charges even without doing DPS, so this was a massive buff to the scythe. Other than that, the Fang received a big nerf because it now only applies a passive effect of double accuracy roll when used on stab. Previously, it would apply to slash as well, making it the best weapon to fight Vardorvis. After this change, the Fang is not as strong on slash to give other weapons their time in the spotlight, like the Soul Reaper Axe or the Blade of Sailor. Finally, for this category, we have the removal of many forestry items to trigger events, which basically made it more tedious to get forestry event you wanted for one reason or another. Other than a few items that stayed in the game, these were sent to the Shadow Realm, making forestry just a little better, although this is being a little bit too generous. The last time we bundle many changes in one of these topics is to talk about buffs to minigames in old school RuneScape. The best minigame for the best skill in the game, Guardians of the Rift, was updated so now it has dynamic scaling, meaning it will scale according to how many players are active in the room at all times, and not just at the beginning of the game. We can now do big searches on the rewards Guardian, and as long as you can make the Colossal Pouch at level 56 crafting, you can now use it at any rune crafting level, but it's going to scale up to the highest essence pouch you can use. For example, if you're level 75, you will only be able to store essence that the giant pouch is able to store. All the rooms in the Mage Training Arena were changed for the better. For the telekinetic room, the Guardian moves faster, there's no delay when casting spells, and your run energy is restored after every mace. For the Alchemy room, we now only have 6 pillars, the rotation is slower, and the 12k GP limit is removed in case you want to camp here. For the Enchanting room, every corner has its own type of item, you can randomly find Dragon Stones, and get more experience when depositing the items. And for the Graveyard room, you can see where the bones are going to fall, You get more points for depositing peaches, and there's no delay when depositing food. As for a winter toad, we have a new mechanic called Warmth Meter, which removes the need for food. You can consume potions made inside the winter toad to recover warmth, and you can now search for loot in the cart outside the tent, which has the bank. If you want to learn more about these changes, I will leave a handy video in the description. Depending on what type of player you are, this one might be hit or miss, but we can't deny that Scurrius was a great addition to the game in more ways than one. The Rat King comes to teach early game players crucial PvM activities such as positioning, prayer switches, and the tick system. With rocks constantly falling from the ceiling, Scurrius is not something you can AFK like a lot of monsters and the low-level bosses, especially if you don't have the best gear or high stats. This mechanic will definitely keep you alert of incoming damage, which you can easily avoid. Both the range and mage attacks have great visual indicators to tell players exactly what they're looking for, and timing for these attacks is especially generous for a few ticks of reaction time. These get a little faster during enraged phase, and if you have one of the bone weapons, killing rats in quick succession will somewhat teach you the tick system. Not only is this a great way to get people into low-level PvM, but this activity is also encouraged to do in a group. Scurrius has a higher experience multiplier when done with multiple people, which incentivizes players to go in together for higher experience gains. Scurrius is one of the reasons why I plan on remaking my 1-99 melee guide in the future, and it is without a doubt more entertaining than training at the Nightmare Zone or at the different crabs around old school RuneScape. I have mixed feelings for While Guthix Sleeps, but it definitely deserves a spot on the list. This quest was originally released all the way back in RuneScape 2, and was the first ever Grandmaster quest, pushing the limits of storytelling and taking the lore to new heights. In old school RuneScape though, despite the quest of being fun during release, post-quest rewards are incredibly lackluster when compared to other adventures in this category. Not to sound like a hater, but the only thing we really have are Tormented Demons, and that's about it. Critiques aside, Tormented Demons drop new items, some of which can be considered staples for PvM. We have the Bone Claws, which are budget alternative to the Dragon Claws, and you can dump 3 special attacks per full special attack energy bar. More importantly, we got the Tormented Synapse, and the Ember Light comes to substitute the Arc Light as a non-degradable Demon-Bane weapon for melee. This item is now best in slot at the Abyssal Sire and Cerberus to mention a few, of course if you don't have a scythe. And it looks absolutely amazing. The Scorching Bow, despite being one of the ugliest items in the game, completely breaks Krill Tsusaroth, making it almost AFK because of how busted the special attack is. The Purging Staff is obviously the weaker of the 3, but any of these weapons will also put in the work at Tormented Demons to make even more money on your greater demon tasks. Starting the top half of the list, we have the second part of Varlamore. We got a lot of content in this new area expansion, but it falls a little short when comparing it to Varlamore Part 1. But more on that one later. The star of the show is definitely the Wacoatl. Thanks to this new group encounter, we got items like the Dragon Hunter Wand, which comes to close out the combat triangle for the Dragon Bane weapons, along the crossbow and the lance. Don't get too excited though, because in my opinion, this item is definitely the weakest of the 3. We also got the Tome of Earth to make these spells more powerful, Wacoatl Hide Armor to compete with Blessed Dragon Hide to offer a cooler look, and the most important of all drops, Waska Seeds, which can be planted for Waska Herbs. These can now make the Prayer Regeneration and the Potion of Goading, which have now become staples in tons of PvM activities and Slayer respectively. Smaller pieces of content include Mastering Mixology, which is an Ironman friendly way to train herblore, since you get more experience per herb and unfinished potion instead of making full potions, and cool items in the shop to help with herblore related activities. A new low level boss by the name Amoxliatl was added to the mix, and we got a new agility course by the name Colossal Worm. This was supposed to come with Varlamore Part 1, but without it, the second part would have been a little lackluster despite not offering a ton, besides a new graceful recolor and a new way to obtain Amethyst crystals. One of the biggest updates, not only in 2024 but in the history of the game, more specifically for combat, was Project Combat Rebalance. Jagex took this opportunity to give some combat elements a coat of fresh paint, and bring them up to par with some quality of life changes added in recent memory. You can check out another video I did to learn everything about it, but just to mention a few, Melee received quite a few buffs to different items. The Soul Reaper Axe now feels better to use where it's supposed to shine, so at like 3 places. The Elder Maul was given a special attack, better than the Dragon Warhammer. The Inquisitor set and the Mace are more powerful when used in tandem, and the Ancient Godsword received a slight nerf to keep it in check for PvP. For ranged, we now have 3 types of ammo in the game, being light, normal, and heavy. And many monsters in the game were given ranged weaknesses to give this style a little more diversity. Despite this sounding like a big change, I personally feel like this doesn't really affect the range to the way Jagex intended, because not a lot of bosses which you defeat with ranged actually changed in the way you kill them. The biggest change of them all was for magic, and we have too many details to mention in this video. Again, I encourage you to check out the video I mentioned before, but we now have elemental weaknesses for a lot of monsters to encourage players to use something other than trident-like weapons. Elemental spells max hit now scales up to the best spell you have access to in their category, and now you can autocast ancient spells with no delay. Towards the end of August, we were given a new Slayer boss by the name Araxxor. If you play or played RuneScape 3, this name may ring a bell. But sadly for them, and luckily for us, the only similarities between these bosses is the name. Requiring level 92 Slayer to defeat, Araxxor came to give us fun combat achievements, and most importantly, new items which are also staple in a lot of PvM activities. Starting with the Amulet of Rancor, this is now the best and slot melee amulet in the game, which you can make with an Amulet of Torture and an Araxxite Fang. If you get the pet, the Araxxite Head, and the Halberd, you can make the amulet white, which is a new mechanic in the game. Other drops include the Arania boots dropped by the non-boss spiders in the cave, and these Jordans ignore spider web type attacks. This makes Arachnis 100% AFK under the right circumstances, and by wearing them you will not be stuck in P3 Verzik to avoid griefing your team. If one of your teammates is called a Thursgull, you definitely want these in your setup. Finally, we have a new item called the Araxxite Venom Sac to make extended anti-venom potions, which will definitely help in places like Araxxor, Vorkath, and Zulrah. But really though, these will help whenever you get venomed, as you get around 6 minutes of immunity. The runner-up spot belongs to Varlamore Part 1. The highly anticipated new area expansion came to revolutionize the game in more ways than one, and definitely set the bar for what we can expect for future updates. First, Hunter Rumors is now the best way to train the skill as early as level 46, although you will be getting the highest experience at levels 72 and 91 with Expert and Master Rumors respectively. Before this, Hunter would be trained up to level 80 to start gaining profit through Chinchampas or the Herbivore, because you would simply release all the creatures when training. Rumors now provides actual profit thanks to the loot given to you by masters. Perilous Moons is the spiritual successor of Barrows, giving us brand new armor and weapons for all 3 combat styles. You would want to get Blood Moon before Bandos, Eclipse Moon is decent ranged armor before you get base Masori, and even though the Blue Moon staff is too niche to use properly, the armor is a good alternative which gives percentage magic damage bonus. The pinnacle of this update, however, was a new endgame PvM encounter by the name the Fortis Colosseum. A lot of people deem this activity harder than the Inferno, despite only being 12 waves long, but when you are able to defeat the Soul Heretic comfortably, you can consider yourself a top tier PvMer. Along the Dazana's Quiver, the new best in slot ranged cape in the game, other items like the Sunfire Fanatic armor, the Echo Boots, and the Tunnel Sticks of Ralos came to give PvM gear more options for different activities. In my personal opinion, the best update came towards the end of the year in the form of League's 5 Raging Echoes. Now, I may sound a little biased because I love the League, but even if you dislike it, hear me out for a second. One simply cannot deny the impact the League's 5 had in the game. First of all, it took over social media from the moment the Jagex began showing teasers, and places like YouTube, Twitter, Reddit, and Discord could not get enough. We saw new content creators rise up thanks to the announcements, and people who usually cover the league continued to dominate the video space. If you don't agree with my personal opinion though, Old School RuneScape broke their record for the highest amount of concurrent players at around 230,000 during the first weekend. I know a lot of people don't like to talk about concurrent player count because they say it could just be bots. But really, you will barely find any bots in the league because you don't really get anything, so this is a lot less common for leagues. If you didn't check out the ground exchanges during this time, bonds rose up to nearly 17 million GP, and I'm guessing this has a lot to do with players bonding up alt accounts to try different builds. Not only was League 5 the best league we have had up to date, but it was objectively the best update of 2024 because of how many players it was able to attract, and I hope we can break another record in the future. So ladies and gentlemen, this marks the end of the video, and of course the end of the year. I hope you had fun remembering all these changes, and if you did, tell me what your favorite update was and why. If you include the term RSN and your username in your comment, you'll be entered in a weekly bond giveaway, for which we will pick a winner on Friday's stream. I want to give one final thank you to all the Giga Chats you see on screen right now for supporting this channel monetarily, all of which goes towards my family and the local animal shelter we help every month. If you want to join this list of legends, click the join button below to see all the cool perks and benefits you can get in the videos, in the live streams, and of course in the Discord. In the next one, I will give you guys 100 plus tips and tricks for old school RuneScape to keep the tradition going for the first video of the year. For now, I hope you have an amazing day, have an amazing week, and have an amazing year, and I will see you then. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Peace.